I think it was a mixture of all those causes which you've read out. I mean, the two MPs that had given up their seats had behaved appallingly, and that would have left a very bad feeling. The infighting is just dominating the press. The Tories don't look like a party that is marching to victory. They look like a party which is just falling apart, arguing amongst itself. Some of the policies, of course, have been unpopular, though the Rwanda policy remains very popular in the polls. So I think it's probably a mixture of those things. But this much I do know, that unless they really come up with some imaginative policies and present a united front, they've got to do those two things, then frankly it doesn't matter what Boris does, they're not going to win the next election. So I would say to any Tory who's still going on about a confidence vote and changing the rules, just look at the timetable and ask yourself if you really want the party to be breaking out in argument and fights and all the rest of it just months before a general election, which is what in effect it will come to a year out from a general election. Everybody's talking about it and everybody sees everything you do in terms of that.
So if you could pick one, I mean, to me, watching it's like watching The Apprentice, isn't it? You've got to say, look, just win and then you can do whatever, but you need to win first. They're not going to win like this. If you could pick one of them, though, which do you think is the most, the main reason why you think that they lost that by-election? Because I can see it's a mixture of all four. But if I was to put my finger on one, I don't know which one, but which one would you put your finger on for that?
I think probably the third, which is the Tory infighting, followed closely behind by the fourth, which is Tory policies, because other than Rwanda, what can you name that has actually caught the popular imagination? And the thing that I really resent is this, Boris should now be, when he talked about getting Brexit done, it wasn't just getting it done, it was making it irreversible. And if he now took VAT off fuel, not only would it help people with their winter fuel bills, but more important than that, it would make it impossible for anybody to want to vote to go back into the EU. Why doesn't he do something like that? It's not rocket science.
Why do you think that from the outside looking in, for me, I can see that it just looks like a dishevelled mess, the way they're behaving. Why do you think that the backbenchers and the people within the party are so adamant on trying to change the leader at this most poignant time?
Again, I think there's a mixture of reasons. First of all, you've got a lot of Tories who are still wet behind the ears. This is the first time they've served in Parliament. 2 years were not normal because of COVID. They were hardly there actually doing anything. They don't say, with the world weariness of people like me, oh, for heaven's sake, we've seen it all before. You can lose by-elections big time and you can go on to win a general election. It's what you do in between the two that counts. We've seen it all before. John Major lost a couple of desperate by-elections in 1991. 1992, he won the general election. It can be done, but they're not focused on that. They've got it into their heads that they need no disasters between winning the last election and fighting the next one. They need no disasters. And once there's a disaster, it's the PM's fault and he's got to go. Silly idiots.
What you've got MPs there like Andrew Bridgen and Steve Baker who are looking for a new way to change the rules as well to get rid of him. I mean, well, if you could speak to them, you've mentioned it earlier, but what would your message be to both of those two?
Well, my message to those two would be, you need to secure Brexit. Now, don't get away with the idea that Brexit may not be changed. We've had Tobias Ellwood saying, well, if we can change the leadership, we can go back into the single market. Make sure the policies happen, which will mean that Brexit is totally irreversible. And to do that, you need a Brexiteer as PM, and you've got one. And think of the risk that you run of getting a Remainer or getting a pseudo-Remainer if you get rid of Boris. Those two are big Brexiteers. What are they thinking of? What are Baker and Britain thinking of?